You've heard that diamonds are rare, that they're a timeless symbol of love, that you should spend 2 months' salary on one. What if I told you that all three of those facts were invented by the same company? This isn't a story about geology. It's the story of the most successful marketing campaign in history and how it turned a common carbon crystal into a priceless romance. The first clue that something's off is when you try to sell one. You walk into the jewelry store and buy a ring for, say, $5,000. The moment you walk out the door, that investment is probably worth $2,000, maybe less. If this thing is a truly scarce, valuable commodity, why does its value get cut in half the second it becomes your property? That's not how gold or real estate works. That's the first thread you pull. The story we're told is one of geological scarcity. And yes, a flawless 50-carat pigeon's egg blue diamond is incredibly rare. But the 1-carat very good cut stone in 99% of jewelry cases? The world mines over 120 million carats of rough diamonds a year. That's enough to give a brand new diamond to every single person in the United Kingdom and Australia combined. Every single year. That doesn't sound like scarcity. It sounds like a well-managed supply chain and a very, very strong story. For most of the 20th century, that story was managed by one company, De Beers. Through its Central Selling Organization, or CSO, they controlled somewhere between 80 and 90% of the entire world's rough diamond trade. Imagine a massive pipeline that all the world's diamond mines fed into. De Beers stood at the end of that pipeline with a single faucet. They had a knob, a world price knob. They could turn it up or turn it down to keep the flow of diamonds onto the market perfectly stable and prices predictably high. They enforced this control through an exclusive club of approved buyers called sightholders. Several times a year, these buyers were summoned. They were given a sealed box of assorted rough diamonds at a non-negotiable price. The rule was simple. Take the entire box or leave it and risk losing your spot in the club forever. This wasn't just a transaction, it was an initiation. The message was clear. You are not our customer. You are our distributor. Uphold the price, uphold the mystique, or you're out. When new mines threatened to break their control, like the massive Argyle mine in Australia in the 1980s, or new discoveries in Russia and Canada, De Beers had a powerful tool, its stockpile. They could simply buy up the excess supply from the new mines and lock it away in their vaults, sometimes for years, releasing it slowly to prevent a price crash. The scarcity wasn't in the ground. It was manufactured in a London vault. Controlling supply was only half the equation. The other half was creating demand out of thin air. In 1947, an advertising copywriter named Frances Garrity, working late at night for her client De Beers, scribbled down a line she wasn't even sure about. 4 simple words. A diamond is forever. It didn't just sell a product, it permanently welded a shiny rock to the concepts of eternal love, commitment, and permanence. And here's the quiet economic genius of that line. It short-circuited the very idea of a secondary market. You don't sell a family heirloom. You don't get a quote on a piece of your soul. You don't pawn forever. By reframing the diamond as a priceless symbol, they cleverly discouraged you from ever trying to sell it. If you never sell, you never discover the massive gap between the retail price and the resale value. The story protects the price. But how much should this symbol cost? The ads had an answer for that too. They invented the salary rule. At first, it was a modest 1-month salary. But as incomes grew, the ads quietly escalated the benchmark. By the 1980s in the US, it was 2 months. In Japan, they successfully pushed it to 3. It wasn't a tradition, it was a line in an ad, presented as ancient wisdom. It gave nervous buyers a number, turning romantic anxiety into a simple math problem with a very expensive solution. And did it work? The numbers are staggering. In 1939, before the campaign began in earnest, annual U.S. diamond sales were about $23 million. By 1979, after decades of a diamond is forever and the salary rule, that number had exploded to over $2 billion. They didn't just find a market, they built one from scratch. Pop culture was the amplifier. Hollywood put the diamond ring at the center of the plot. Marilyn Monroe famously saying that diamonds were a girl's best friend. Every magazine spread, every movie romance, every celebrity engagement reinforced the same message. True love isn't just sealed with a kiss, it's sealed with a diamond. The social pressure became immense. If you need one perfect case study that this was all engineered, look at Japan. In the mid-1960s, a diamond engagement ring was a bizarre Western novelty. Fewer than 5% of Japanese brides received one. So De Beers launched a total cultural blitz. They didn't just run ads, they tied diamonds to modernity, to Western glamour, to a sophisticated global ideal. By 1981, 60% of Japanese brides wore a diamond. A few years later, it was nearly 80%. They manufactured a timeless tradition in less than a generation. But no empire lasts forever. By the 2000s, De Beers' grip was slipping. Their market share fell below 45%. Russia's state-owned mine, Alrosa, began selling directly to the market. The Argyle mine in Australia did the same. New Canadian mines added to the flow. The single, controllable faucet had become many competing taps. The old system of total control was breaking down. Then came the legal reckoning. In 2004, after decades of being unable to operate in America due to antitrust issues, De Beers pled guilty to price-fixing industrial diamonds and paid a $10 million fine. It sounds small, but it was huge. It was a public admission. The king of diamonds had finally bowed to U.S. law. The aura of untouchability was cracked, and yet the price of engagement rings didn't crash. Why not? Because the demand machine they built was now self-sustaining. The culture carried the load. An entire generation had grown up believing that a diamond meant love. The cartel's direct control faded, but the script it had written was now deeply embedded in our social lives. The habit was stronger than the monopoly. And then came the real game changer: lab-grown diamonds. Scientists at General Electric actually made the first synthetic one way back in 1954, but it took until the 2010s for technology to allow mass production of gem-quality stones. They are chemically, physically, and optically identical to mined diamonds. Same sparkle, same hardness. The only difference is their origin story. One came from 1 billion years of pressure, the other from a few weeks in a high-tech machine. In 2018, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission ruled that a diamond is a diamond, whether it comes from a lab or the ground. That opened the floodgates. Wholesale prices for a 1-carat lab-grown stone plummeted by as much as 80%. Imagine the price of gold falling 80% because someone invented an alchemy machine. That's what happened here. It exposed just how much of the natural diamond's price was the story, not the stone. This finally explains the resale problem. That retail price you pay isn't just for the stone, it's for the velvet box, the spotlighting, the Fifth Avenue rent, the glossy magazine ads, and the jeweler's profit. When you sell it back, all of that marketing and overhead vanish. You're left with just the stone competing against global wholesale prices. All the romance, all the story you paid for evaporates at the counter. So here's the hidden economic logic. Diamond scarcity was engineered twice. First, physically, by controlling the supply with a cartel and a stockpile. Second, and more importantly, culturally, by creating a tradition with a slogan and a spending rule. The forever story was designed to shield you from ever discovering the weak resale value, preserving the illusion of a precious investment. Now, a few quick caveats. That 120 million carat number is for rough diamonds. Only a fraction are gem quality. And truly huge, flawless, or fancy-colored natural stones are legitimately rare and can be incredible investments. But the point is about the vast majority of diamonds sold in malls every day. Their price is a story of marketing, not geology. So why are diamonds expensive? Not because they're rare, but because for a century, two of the most powerful economic levers were pulled in perfect harmony: monopolize the supply and manufacture the demand. The most valuable part of that diamond isn't the compressed carbon, it's the story they told you about what it means. And here is the final twist you might not have seen coming. The rise of lab-grown diamonds hasn't just offered a cheaper alternative, it has forced the natural diamond industry to finally be honest about its own product. Their new pitch isn't about rarity anymore. It's about origin, a billion-year-old love story from the earth. They have been forced to stop selling the stone and start openly selling the story. Because, as technology has now proven, the story is all they ever really had. If you enjoyed the hidden economics behind everyday luxuries, subscribe and stick around. There are videos here on why prices end in 99, how coupons really work, and why printer ink costs a fortune. Thanks for watching Sneakanomics. See you next time.